As we continue through time, as we continue through this crisis of ours, more people are in need of additional help from the generosity of others, whether it be organizations and nonprofits that are directly going out and helping these people, or through other crowdfunding sources as well. But that also opens the door for people that are wanting and seeking to commit crimes of opportunity and take advantage of the kindness and the good nature of others. And one person that is on the front lines working to help people avoid those situations and be able to use their generosity and their good heart for legitimate purposes is Melanie Ducanel. She is the president and CEO of the Better Business Bureau of Michigan, joining us now on the MegaCast. Melanie, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Tyler.
So right now, after a disaster such as Hurricane Ida or the continuing pandemic, we often see a lot of these advertisements, these public service announcements saying, hey, we need donations for this organization or this or that organization, or pandemic relief telethon pops up or something like that. And there's other donation drives as well, whether it be for supplies or some other supplies, monetary donations, food, whatever the case may be. But with that comes opportunities also for scammers to take advantage of people's generosity. What do we typically see? What usually is the timeline from when we start to have these calls for relief and calls for the generosity of others to help other people, and then have these scammers also come into play?
Wow, those are a lot of questions. So Tyler, I'll try to start from the beginning. The time that scammers start asking for donations is usually within a couple of hours of the disaster happening. I mean, they're really quick to act, and that's the difficulty. But there are so many things you can do to protect your money. And I'm going to use the Humphreys County, Tennessee example. The CEO of the BBB in Tennessee reached out to us directly. We know her. We know what's going on. She has boots on the ground. Those are all three great things. You need to know who's asking. You need to know how they are involved. And then you need to know if that charity has actually got boots on the ground. Now, there are people that are just like, hey, I just want to give the money and step away. And that's great if, one, you know who you're giving to. If you don't know who you're giving to because it popped up in your Facebook feed or you got a text message or something like that, that's when you have to really slow down, take a look, and do a little homework.
And where should people go, whether it be websites or numbers they can call? Obviously, the Better Business Bureau would be a resource that can provide some help on determining the legitimacy of a business and maybe be able to point them in the right direction for some of these nonprofits as well. But are there other resources that people can access that the Better Business Bureau would suggest to take those steps to verify these charities that they're looking into or that they're seeing advertisements for?
There's quite a few places, and one of them is our sister organization called give.org. It's part of our Wise Giving Alliance organization, and they actually accredit charities. They go through and they look at their standards of trust and make sure that those charities abide in those. There's also a very active resource, and that's our state's Attorney General's office. Charities in the state of Michigan need to register with the state. Now, 40 out of 50 of our states have their charities register. So depending upon where your charity is located, you could go to that Attorney General's office website and see if they've been registered. The other thing that you can look at is Charity Navigator. They also look at their financial statements and those kind of things to make sure that they're a legitimate business. Last but not least, you can also look at the IRS's website. They will tell you if it is a registered tax-paying, or not really always tax-paying, but a registered organization with the federal government. So there's lots of quick resources you can do. It's all done on the internet. So here's my beware statement. Don't use what is provided to you for a URL. You do all the typing yourself. Don't just take something and copy and paste into your web browser. You actually do. So AmericanRedCross.org. If you got a link that's at AmericanRedCross.com, that's probably not American Red Cross. So you need to know exactly what you're working with.
We're joined by Melanie Ducanel. She is the president and CEO of the Michigan Better Business Bureau with us on the MegaCast. And Melanie, when people are finding these charitable organizations, you've identified some points they should look for to identify legitimacy, but are there other red flags that they could be seeing as well, whether it be a boots on the ground organization that's approaching them at the grocery store or in some other public place, or it be something online, whether it be an email or it be a link? What are some red flags that people should look out for that when they see, they immediately should take a step back and be like, oh, whoa, this organization that looked like it was doing wonderful things and it's a legitimate charity and it's actually helping a lot of people may not be everything it seems to be?
So the first clue is that they guarantee 100% of your donation is going to go to the victims. I don't know of any organization that does not have overhead. They have to pay staff. They have to pay for vehicles to transport the goods to the disaster. They have to pay for gasoline. They have to pay for storage. So there are administrative costs that actually will eat into every donation some way, somehow. The only example that is different from that is if for whatever reason there's a benefactor that just covers all of the organization's operational costs. But that example is so few and far between. So if they say 100% of your donation is going to go to the relief efforts, beware. Another thing is, how are your donations going to be used? And if they're kind of pussyfooting around going, well, it's going to go, it's going to do that, beware. So, and then always use the one that really kind of irks me is we've heard it in other online shopping scams, but some of these scammers are using celebrities to drive donations. Do yourself a favor, Google that celebrity's name and charity and see what they actually support, because at the end of the day, there's a real strong chance they're not supporting this type of relief effort for this particular charity.
We're joined by Melanie Ducanel. She is the president and CEO of the Michigan Better Business Bureau. Now, Melanie, some organizations may jump through all the hoops that they need to, go through all the steps that they have to become legitimate organizations, but that doesn't necessarily mean that all the work that they're doing is, like you said, 100% is a red flag, but is going majority toward the actual cause. Sometimes these nonprofits are using some of those funds for other means. Is that something that they have to be transparent with to potential donors, or is that something that they can relieve themselves from disclosing as long as they are running their operation within the law?
It really depends on the ethics of that organization of whether or not they want to be 100% transparent. It is not a legal requirement. So what you can do is you can look at the financial statements. So as an example with Charity Navigator, they will print out the financial statements of that organization. So you could quickly look and see how much is going to payroll, how much is going to building, how much is going to programming. And I do want to give you one cautionary point, though, is that if you see an organization that is 100% human driven, meaning the way that the services and the programs are delivered is by humans, you're going to see a salary number that may throw you off base. You may say, hey, wait a minute, 70% of their overall revenue source is going to salaries. That's crazy. But if it's hands and boots on the ground, that they need to deliver the services that way, your payroll is going to be high. So just because payroll is high doesn't mean it's bad, but you have to know exactly what they are providing. Now, if they are just a logistics company, as an example, there is a nonprofit that flies patients out of remote areas, such as up in Alaska, to the hospital and stuff like that, and it's a charity. If you look at their expenses, a lot of it goes to airplane fuel, it goes to airplane maintenance, it goes to personnel cost. But if you're going, but how's that the program? That is entirely the program.
We're joined by Melanie Ducanel. She is the president and the CEO of the Michigan Better Business Bureau, joining us today on the MegaCast. And Melanie, for those that do end up falling victim to some of these more predatory charity scams or to organizations that are more predatory than than helpful. And maybe predatory is a bad choice of words for them, but maybe they're leading people on more than they are leading people to help. Are there protections in place for general consumers and for donors to ensure that if they do fall victim, they have some help in place to either help them relieve their information from distribution, or to maybe relinquish some of the funds that have been put out there and maybe gone to purposes that they didn't think that it was going towards?
Potentially, and I use that in quotations, potentially, if you used a credit card to make your payment and you can prove that the money did not go to charitable outcome, you could talk to your credit card company and get a refund. The other resource, and the strongest one, but the problem is that it's going to take a long time to potentially get a refund, is the state's Attorney General Dana Nessel's office. They do have a charitable organization task force and team that watches our charities in the state very closely. If this charity is out of state, again, you can go to the state Attorney General. The other thing that you can also look at is the Federal Trade Commission, because depending upon how they solicited you, that could also be something that they could advocate on your behalf. So, but sadly, if you generally give a donation, the donation is gone. So that's why the upfront homework is so important.
We're joined by Melanie Ducanel. She's the president and the CEO of the Better Business Bureau of Michigan, with us today on the MegaCast. And Melanie, not all charities are created the same. A lot of people will make donations to a cause that they find near and dear to their heart, or something that is tugging at their heartstrings at one moment in time. They may make a donation and think, well, hey, this organization, I've done my research, I've done my homework, they're doing good work, I want to help and make a donation, and the benefit for me is I can deduct that from my taxes later on. But that's not the case with every single charity, correct?
That's correct, especially, and this is probably the one that pulls at your heartstrings the most. A family loses their house to a fire and they do a crowdfunding site. And so everybody wants to make a donation to that family. 99% of the time, the family is not created a charity in order to receive those funds. So that will not be tax deductible. So again, one of those other upfront questions, are you a 501c3 charity? If you understand that designation, that's an IRS determinant. And when you have that available, the charity should be able to give you a receipt if it is fully tax deductible.
We're joined by Melanie Ducanel. She is the president and CEO of the Michigan Better Business Bureau, joining us today on the MegaCast. Melanie, just another couple minutes with you before we'll say goodbye today. Is there anything else right now that is of great concern, or should be of concern, to consumers in a general sense across the board, whether it be related to charities and to charity scams, or to other issues that the Better Business Bureau is working on?
So we're just coming into what I consider the tidy up and button up season, known as fall and winter, before we all go back and hibernate in our houses. So we're all looking at roofing and waterproofing and all those kind of things. So home improvement scams are still out there, so you have to be careful. And again, I know I say this word too many times, but homework is imperative. So know exactly what you want to get done and what your budget is in advance of having anybody come and give you a quote. You may be completely surprised, because of the availability of contractors right now being so few and far between. As an example, I'm looking at tuck pointing my chimney before winter, and I talked to him at the beginning of July. I'm going to see him in October. So if you're going to do these things, you really need to do your homework and get that contract signed now, because you're going to find that they're booking so far in advance that you might not actually get it done in 2021.
We're joined by Melanie Ducanel. She is the president and the CEO of the Michigan Better Business Bureau, with us today on the MegaCast. Melanie, before we let you go, what are some important links that are provided through the Better Business Bureau or web pages through the Better Business Bureau that you would suggest people view before they make donations or before they make business decisions for some of those fall tidying up procedures they want to go through?
You can always go to bbb.org, and for our local area, it's /Detroit. because the Better Business Bureau covers all of North America, including Canada and Mexico. So we are trying to protect you everywhere you go on our continent. But if you're specifically looking for tips on what to do for home improvement or for charity, we do have a search button. Just type in that, or look at our news and events column as well. We can also show you what our tips are. But the most interesting part of what we do is we have a website called BBB Scam Tracker, and you can actually look by zip code on what kind of scams and frauds are going on in your area. And if, as an example, my family lives in Nevada as well, so if I'm looking to do something on behalf of my parents, I can look specifically at Nevada's zip code and see if there's anything in particular that they need to be wary of, and I can alert them as well.
Well, Melanie, we appreciate having you on. Thank you for all this very helpful information, especially as people respond to Hurricane Ida, the situation with the evacuation of troops from Afghanistan and other issues that will pop up, and charitable opportunities. It's important for people to know this information, and as they go into the fall and make those home improvements and other changes in their life as well, and interact with some local businesses, hopefully legitimate ones, and if not, they'll have the tools they need to figure out how to combat that before or even after they are in a precarious situation. So thank you for the information.
Thanks, Tyler. Appreciate being here.